What is up, guys? Sub-Zero here, going over another Set 7 leak. Finally, all the abilities for all the champions have been released, as long with their mana costs. We already had their traits and their names and their costs and that kind of stuff. Even the skill names have been leaked if you really care about that kind of stuff. So I'm going to go through all of it. If you're just here for the leaked information, then go check the description down below and I'll have a link to it. But I would greatly appreciate it if you stuck around and listened to me talk through all the abilities, because I think I have a pretty good insight into everything, hidden challenger this set, all that kind of stuff. So that being said, let's get into it. We're just going to go in order of cost through every champion, and I'm going to try to not make it too long, so I'll go through a bit quick, but we'll see. Okay, so Atrox, starting off the 1 costs, 50 out of 100 mana, so like decently high mana cost. Atrox strikes his target for X physical damage and heals himself for some HP. Okay, I imagine this is one of the ones that's kind of like an extra auto attack, right? It's like an empowered auto attack. We'll see how it actually ends up in the game, but that means it would synergize really well with stuff that synergizes with auto attacks. Though, because he heals himself, because he's a 1 cost and a melee carry, I imagine he's going to be good with stuff like Bloodthirster, Titans, that kind of stuff. Seems like a pretty strong ability, right? Healing himself for a lot, actually. So he actually can be quite a solid, like kind of like AD tank, sort of like how Garen was in early set 6. Maybe there's some kind of Shimmer Scale reroll trait, and Shimmer Scale is the like econ item trait, so that seems really interesting. Like, what if you stack up, you get like a 3-star Atrox, stack them up a lot? That seems really interesting. That's quite cool. I like this a lot. I'm really hyped to play with the Shimmer Scale, so we'll see. All right, Ezreal, mana 0 out of 40, Mystic Shot, and I think it's exactly the same. Ezreal fires an energy bolt towards his target. The first enemy hit takes 70 magic damage and grants Ezreal 20% bonus attack speed, and that can stack up to 5 times. So that's the exact same Ezreal we have now, I believe, unless they like swap the numbers around slightly. I like the current Ezreal we have. Now he's a Tempest Swift Shot, so more like AD. I mean, he's always going to be AD with this ability. But yeah, there's not too much to say because we've already seen this. I think it's a very solid 1 cost. All right, next we have Heimerdinger, who I think is going to be really interesting. He's the dragon trainer, so they're supposed to like feed units. It's kind of like the Abomination or the Innovator of this set, where they like feed an extra unit some cookies, and then eventually it like becomes a real unit. Once you get 2 trainers, and it becomes like a unit that you can play. Also, if you haven't seen the traits, go check out my previous video. I'll have a link to it somewhere in this video, so go check that out. Ideally, you can just like click the little thing over on the left there, and wait, that's the right. But in any case, Heimerdinger's ability, 40 out of 80, so decently high mana cost, Egg Toss. He lobs an egg at the highest health enemy, dealing 300, 375, 500 magic damage, and stunning them for 2.25, 2.5 seconds. Okay, so it's like a CC AP ability. It's interesting, it's highest health enemy. He prioritizes highest health. Going through these, it's really important to look at like what do they actually prioritize. This is the highest health enemy, so that's something interesting to look at. So because targeting matters a lot for late game positioning, all that kind of stuff. And it goes straight to the highest health enemy. I imagine it's like targeted. It's not like a skill shot aimed at them. It's just like it's gonna hit the highest health enemy. It's actually like 300 damage on an 80 mana ability. Doesn't that seem like a lot? I don't know. Maybe I'm just not used to damages. I guess no, that's not actually that much. Okay. And it's a pretty big stun, right? 2-second stun at 3-star, 2.5 seconds. They're pretty solid, just like CC unit. Probably gonna end up CCing like, I mean, I guess like their tanks, probably not. Probably like some kind of high health backline, or maybe like a secondary tank that doesn't take in a lot of damage. So, I mean, he's just like pretty good utility. Probably not gonna be a carry. It's more on the side of just stunning units and CCing. So that's cool. Irma, Jade Dragonmancer, 0 to 50, Inner Flame. She fires a burst of energy towards her target, dealing 150, 225, 325 magic damage in a small area. So with a low mana cost, she's a unit that would really like a blue buff. You slap a blue buff on Karma, and she just casts very frequently. 50 mana isn't like the worst if you have like a Shojin or something like that, but like 0 out of 50, I think. Definitely would like to use a blue buff, and then she'll just be a rapid casting these AoE magic damage hits. So it's just a pretty straightforward like AP champion. Probably not the best like loose streaking champion because she's AoE. So if you think about like champions that are single target are really good when you're loose streaking just because you want them to kill units. Karma's more like you can 2-star this and like start winning combats with this on like a win streak. So something interesting to think about. Leona, Solar Barrier. She creates a barrier around herself, reducing all incoming damage by 30, 40, 120 for 4 seconds. Interesting. So she just flatly reduces incoming damage. So she kind of like wrecks like small damage over time effects, and she kind of like gets still wrecked by like big bursty damage. It's interesting. Just a very solid tank unit. She's a Mirage Guardian. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it just seems like a very generic tank ability. It gives her just flat damage reduction, so it's fine versus AP, fine versus AD. Yeah, just seems like a solid one-cost tank. All right, Nidalee, Astral Shapeshifter. Okay, so she transforms into her Kruger form, so this is the Shapeshifter version of Nidalee, of course. Reducing her attack range to run, she gains bonus movement speed and a bunch of attack speed. When in Kruger form, every third attack swipes her target for X physical damage. Okay, seems pretty sick. So yeah, she turns into her Kruger form, gets some attack speed, and then swipes people for extra damage. It's AD, so it's AD Nidalee right here, right? Extra attack speed, extra AD. Once again, she's like a melee carry once she shapeshifts, so you should really be thinking about things like Bloodthirster, things like Titans, just some kind of healing items so that she can stay alive when she's jumping into the enemy team. No real reason to build her tank, right? It's not like she heals like Aatrox, so she's more like one of these like melee AD carries, sort of like a Yone, like a Yasuo way back in set 5. Way back. I mean, we're about to hit set 7, so kinda. Alright. Next we have Sejuani, a Guild Cavalier, 50 out of 90 Warrior's Wrath. Also, 0 to 45. She's going to be casting pretty quickly for Nidalee. She swings her mace, hitting all enemies in a cone for X magic damage, so 15% maximum HP damage. A lot for a 50% max HP. It seems kind of chunky. She quickly strikes again, repeating the damage on her target and the enemy directly behind it, and stunning them. Okay, so this is like one of the first ones where you can actually do some cute like positioning thing, right? So what she swings her mace at is the enemy, is her target, the enemy that she's hitting. But when she swings it again, she hits the enemy behind them and stuns them. So you really want to be able to potentially line up so that she can hit the enemy. You really want to put her in a spot where she's attacking a unit and then there's an enemy behind them that you want to hit. So this is definitely something interesting to think about positioning wise. I'm interested in how big the range is actually for the second hit, because it says directly behind it. So is it only like a 2 hex range? In which case you're not often going to be hitting the back line, so it might be hard to make this positioning work. Maybe you can do something where you hit like 2 melee carries on a diagonal, or like, you know, if you have them on the side of 2 melee carries, maybe you could do something like that. So interesting positioning things here with Sejuani. I think that's cool. All right, Senna, 30 out of 90. She launches Black Mist. Okay, so it's her Mist ability towards the farthest enemy, striking the first enemy hit and dealing some physical damage. Skills with AD in a small area. The first enemy hit is also dealt a bonus magic damage. Okay, so she throws it towards the farthest enemy, but it strikes the first enemy hit. And it does this in an area, actually. Okay, interesting. And it's still bonus magic damage. So she's going to always target the furthest enemy, but if there's a unit in between, she's going to hit that one. So that's kind of interesting as well. Interesting positioning stuff you can do here. You definitely want to target her in such a way that she can hit who you really care about. If you want her blown up the front line with this ability, then, you know, you can position her such that the front line is in between her and the backline unit. Maybe if you want her to just snipe out the backline, you can do that as well. So definitely something to think about. It's kind of like Caitlyn. Same targeting as Caitlyn, basically, right? She targets the furthest enemy, but strikes the first enemy. So interesting. All right, Set. For the next 4 seconds, Set gains, and it's 30 out of 60. He gains armor and Amar, and every other punch deals X bonus damage. It also, I guess Ragewing is not the trait. It's not the like melee trait that I'm thinking of that gives them damage every other auto attack, right? Let me make sure. But I believe that's not the one that I am thinking of, where like every auto attack they get. Yeah, this is the one where when they cast, they get enraged, get extra attack speed, and Omnivamp. Okay, so yeah, that's interesting. So he's gonna cast this, get really tanky, get Omnivamp and extra attack speed. So you can definitely see Set being like kind of a monster if you like 3-star him and you just put a bunch of stuff on him and like you think you're about to lose a fight, and then Set casts, gets a bunch of armor and MR and Omnivamp and attack speed and just starts punching and destroying the entire enemy team. So this should be a really fun champion. I like this a lot. And he can also just be a solid tank if you just want to play him early. So this seems really fun. Very swingy, right? He could like totally swing an entire fight on his own. Skarner is an Astral Bruiser. He shields himself for 8 seconds and gains attack speed. Very simple. I like it. Interesting that it's a shield plus attack speed. Those are traits that, or these are stats that don't really like synergize that well, right? Like you're shielding yourself, you would want like resists or I don't know, even healing, something like that. I mean, shielding plus healing is kind of a weird combo. But the extra attack speed is just going to make him pop, but he doesn't really gain any extra stats, right? And I don't think Astral or Bruiser give any stats other than like HP from here. So he's just kind of a simple tank that randomly gets some kind of attack speed. So it's all right. Not crazy. Okay. Next is Tom Kench. He shields himself for 150, 300, 450 plus maximum health. Okay, so he makes himself even tankier. This scales with max health. Will shield holds, enemies that damage him take magic damage up to once every 3 seconds. So kind of like a Thornmail effect. It does say enemies that damage him even. So even like a spell, he'll redirect damage, which is quite interesting. So it seems like a solid tank. Ideally, you want him to get hit by everyone so that they can take all the extra damage. So that's something to look at as well. It's once every 3 seconds. I wonder if this is per enemy or it's just once every 3 seconds. Maybe it's just once every 3 seconds, not per enemy. So in that case, you don't really care about that many people hitting him. It's something to think about, definitely. All right, next we have Tarik. He grants himself and his closest ally a protective rune that increases armor. Okay, so he just buffs up their armor. Yeah, that seems quite reasonable. So it's his closest ally when he casts. So it's probably just going to be him fortifying the front line in most fights. Though maybe there's some strange scenario. You could actually, this seems really solid as like a buddy for one of these like melee carries. Karma's the other Jade unit here, so there's not a lot of synergy there. But like if you paired up like a Tarik and say an Atrox or a Tarik and a Set, it seems really nice. Like he buffs up their armor, makes them even tankier, and then they can like theoretically like go infinite, keep healing themselves. So that's something that I would look at, or even like a Nidalee, maybe we'll see. That could be something as well, where you just have like Nidalee, turning into Cougar form, getting a bunch of attack speed, auto attacking a lot, and then Tarik just makes her even tankier. So that's something that you could look at. Pretty cool. And next we have Vladimir, the last 1 cost. So he deals 300, he deals magic damage and heals himself, so it's his transfusion ability. This is the one, oh, it's 0 out of 80, by the way. It's like a decent amount of mana. So he is like a tanky mage again. You can put AP items on him. You can kind of put tank items on him if you want. Seems very solid. Could be like a really good early game holder for AP items. You just put him in the front line. He tanks a lot and heals himself. So that I like that ability as well. Okay, so pretty cool cast of 1 cost so far. Like I said, I don't want to keep it too long, so I'll just move on to the 2 costs. And I realize I'll have to move my camera once or maybe just like zoom in and scroll. I don't know. I'll figure it out once I get a little bit lower. I'll probably just turn my camera off for the bottom view. All right, next up we have Ashe. So she fires her volley of arrows. She deals magic damage to each enemy hit and slows their attack speed by 25%. So it's the same Ashe we have right now. Though this time she's a swift shot, so she's not actually getting bonus damage on her ability. She just gets extra attack speed. So that's something to think about as well. So just sort of like a utility swift shot unit. There's also another Jade unit like these guys. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Dragonmancer. Yeah, I mean, because we've already seen this Ashe, there's not too much to be said about it. But it's a very solid like AD utility unit usually. Though, like we've seen in this set, like Ashe reroll can become a thing if the conditions are right for it. So yeah. Next we have Braum. Okay, 2-cross Braum. Interesting. I've lived in this world of 4-cross Braum this entire set. I'm kind of like, whoa, 2-cross Braum. All right, so he puts up his shield for 4 seconds, reducing damage in that direction. Okay. What direction does he shield in? Is this just in the direction he's attacking? This is really important. What direction does he shield? Um, or is it just like the direction that he's like? How does he know where to shield? Like if he's auto attacking a unit to his right and then there's a unit to his left that's like gonna fire an AP ability. Like if he shields to his right, that he's not gonna reduce this damage. Interesting. Maybe it's just where like the most damage is coming, but this is important. So I'm interested to see what he actually ends up shielding, because that can matter a lot, right? Um, I guess it's also, I wonder how it works with things um, that are like AoE or stuff. I mean, I guess it's like, does he reduce damage for his allies as well for like an AoE spell, like something like a Karma ult? Um, and also, I wonder for it doesn't say anything about it being like the way it exists in League, where he'll just like stop an ability. But I wonder if that's also the case. Something like, I guess, what do we have here that would actually be like that? Um, I guess like if Karma was auto attacking something past Braum and she ulted, would he block it? It doesn't say anything about that, so I imagine he just. I'm actually interested to see how this plays in the game, because there's not actually that much information here about that. So we'll definitely have to look at that as well. All right, next, Gnar. He is a shapeshifter, so he transforms at 70 mana, 0 to 70. Transforms into his mega form, jumping to his target and knocking up nearby enemies for 1 second. He also gains AD and armor. So just really tanky AD Gnar. Jumps to his target and knocks them up. So it seems very, very straightforward. Like the really old. Was this set 1 where there were shapeshifters? I think so. I didn't play that much of set 1. But I used to like Gnar a lot. Okay, so he jumps to his target, which is critical, right? Because it's nearby enemies near his target. So you want him to be autoing something that he can jump to and then knock people up that you really care about him knocking up. So that's something interesting to look into as well. All right, next we got Jinx. Okay, so she uses her Flame Chompers, and it's a pretty high mana cost, 60 out of 120. So she'll cast a little quickly, but then her chance of casting a second time is kind of low, I feel like. Um, Jinx summons a line of traps centered on her target. They detonate after a brief delay, dealing magic damage and stunning enemies, and she gains X mana for each empty trap. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, but she's like an AD champion. She's Revel Cannoneer. Revel cares about casting, Cannoneer cares about auto attacking, so she kind of uses both, like casting and auto attacking. Um, so that's interesting, and it's like it's utility, right? It does some damage, but it's mostly. I mean, it can actually end up doing a lot of damage at like 3-star, but even like 675 damage at 3 stars, not that much. Um, but it's really the CC, right, to sort of like protect herself. It's really nice because she has like self peel, right? Um, because it's just whoever she's autoing. I guess it could be a problem if she's like autoing someone and then an assassin jumps back and then she traps that unit, and doesn't trap the assassin. So it's something to think about as well. But nice little self peel for a unit that really cares that it's gonna be like a glass cannon, right? She just wants to attack a lot. All right, next we got Kane, 2-cost Kane. Okay, and he's Shimmer Scale as well. I'm so excited to try out Shimmer Scale. Rage Ring as well, an Assassin. Okay, so 0 out of 60. He sweeps his scythe in a line through his target. Okay, so it's in a line through his target, so probably extends a few hexes, dealing physical damage and and two enemies probably, and an additional amount of damage to the first enemy hit. Okay, so he slices through. It's I don't know what his ability is, and like what the is it his W in like actual League? I've never played actual Kane. I played Kane in actual League, so I don't know. But yeah, he slices through his target and hits people behind him as well. So that's another like positioning one. He's an assassin, so he's gonna jump to the back. So it kind of reminds me about Twitch positioning. Think of it as like kind of like an AD Twitch, where you want to hit a line through the entire enemy team if possible. So like if they have like 3 units on their back line, you want Kane to jump in right here and then slice through this entire section. So that's this looks pretty cool. I like Twitch positioning in this set, so that should be cool. All right. I think we're getting close. I'm gonna pull up my camera so that you guys can see the rest of this stuff. Um, all right. So next we have Lilia. Oh, near and dear to my heart. I play a lot of Lilia in like real league, so I'm really excited to play her in TFT. 0 out of 60 mana. She's a mage, which allows her to double cast as well. So that's interesting. She's also a cavalier, so she's like kind of like a tanky mage. Um, she strikes a small area around her target's current location, dealing magic damage spread amongst all enemies hit, and bonus magic damage to the enemy in the center. That's always going to be, well, in most cases, that's going to be the unit that she's already hitting. So yeah, she just does some magic damage. It's interesting. This ability is 0% utility. This is all damage, right? But she's I mean, I guess we'll see what her range is. That's another thing we don't have here. Like, is she slightly ranged? Because she's a Cavalier, so you can't imagine that she's like huge range. But maybe she has some amount of range. It's interesting. I'm really interested to see how this plays out. I can't imagine. I don't know. This seems a little bit weak, right? For like a Cavalier to just do flat damage. Like Cavaliers are usually tankier, but maybe you could have like a Lilia that's like jumping around, killing the entire enemy team. Give her like a Hextech Gunblade or something. That could be really interesting. But yeah, there's no healing on this. There's no like stun. It's just straight flat damage, which is interesting. Could be a really weird melee mage, melee like carry mage ability. So that's something. I don't know. We'll have to see how that works. All right, Nami. She's an Astral Mage Mystic, 40 out of 80 for Ebb and Flow. So she launches a wave at her target that bounces to additional targets, prioritizing low health targets. Enemies take damage and allies heal. Okay, so a really nice straight up. She's another mage. She's a mystic as well to give you some MR, and then Astral, which is, if I remember correctly, sort of like the reroll. That's on the other one. It's like the reroll origin, sort of like econ origin. So they get AP. If you roll a lot, you can potentially like 3-star all these guys, get some orbs every 5th shop that you roll through. So quite interesting. Quite interesting. I can't wait to play like reroll Astral. But this seems like a very nice utility unit here where it's going to heal you guys, and she will do some damage to enemies. So like, there's even maybe some world where you could do like carry Nami, though I don't know exactly. All right, next one we got is Kiana, 40 out of 80 for an Elemental Blade, so decent mana cost. Once again, someone who likes mana, something like a Shojin, she's wouldn't be that happy with a blue buff, but she could live with it probably. She dashes to the best position to strike enemies with her blade, dealing magic damage and disarming enemies hit. So she's an AP assassin, looks like, kind of different from League. I guess we'll see. Maybe her scaling could be AD somehow, but she's dealing magic damage. So that's interesting. And then she disarms, which is really cool. I don't know what strike enemies with her blade means. Like it could be something where she, like in League, it's more like in a line. So it could be something where she strikes like in a line. And disarms everyone, or like maybe it's like a swipe. I'm not exactly sure what this will be like, but it definitely looks interesting. And I mean, I love an assassin with some cute positioning that can end up disarm. Like an assassin with a disarm sounds kind of gross, so we'll see how that looks. It could be really good. And yeah, I'm just really interested to see what strike enemies with her blade means. And she's also an AP assassin, so that's cool as well. All right, next up we got Shen. Ragewing Bruiser Warrior. Warrior, I believe, is the one I was thinking of where they just kind of get stats, right? Yeah, they just get increased damage on their attack 25% of the time. So you just like to auto attack, and then they get, boom, a bunch of damage. So we'll see what Shen's ability is. He creates a zone around him in which nearby allies dodge basic attacks, and he gains magic resist when he casts it. Yo, that's really interesting. As his W in actual League, where your allies are going to dodge all normal attacks. Really good into AD comps. Might end up being like slightly mediocre against AP comps. It's also interesting. He's probably he's definitely a melee champion, so it's really hard for you to actually use this on your backline. It's another ability that I think actually works really well with like melee carries. Like I'm seeing a lot in this set so far that really helps enable melee carries, right? Like Shen's ability is going to probably end up on the front line. 40 out of 75, he casts pretty quickly. So you're going to have him on the front line, shielding all of your front line from basic attacks. I mean, it's just nice to make your front line a bit tankier, but I could also see it being really good for something like an Aatrox, something for like a set, just to make them even tankier and allow them to heal themselves and things like that. So that's quite interesting. Oh boy, oh boy. We got Thresh next. All right. Death Sentence. 150 out of 150, so he's going to cast immediately. Thresh hooks the farthest enemy, dealing damage and pulling them toward himself. Oh man. So I imagine it's like set 5's Thresh. So I wonder if was set 5 Thresh 150 out of 150, because I remember his hook would always kind of be delayed in such a way that it would make it so he would hook enemies. Like say you had your carry in like the second to last hex. I guess I could like pull up a little positioning thing here real quick just so I could show you guys what I'm talking about. But say you have like a carry here, and there's a Thresh on the enemy team, and you put like a melee unit right here to help protect them. In set 5, it would work such that the melee unit would start walking up to the center, and then Thresh would hook, and he would end up pulling your guy. Blitzcrank is not like this. Blitzcrank will always hook this melee unit, except when he bugs out, but it shouldn't be that way. He should always hook this melee unit if he's like over in the corner here. Like if you just protect Orianna like this, she should never get hooked. But versus a Thresh, she can get hooked. So I'm interested to see what that ends up actually looking like if he has the delay that he had in previous sets, because I know some people really didn't like that. But it makes for interesting positioning, a lot of stuff you can do. So we'll see. We'll see about Thresh. All right, next we have Tristana. She's one of the 3 dragon trainers, like the Yordle dragon trainers. She's also a cannoneer, 0 to 60. She fires up to 3 explosive charges, prioritizing the closest targets without a charge. They detonate after 3 seconds, dealing physical damage to nearby enemies and magic damage to the target. Okay, so that's pretty cool. It's physical damage and magic damage. Okay, the physical damage is to nearby enemies, and magic damage is just to the target. So she's just gonna auto a lot as a cannoneer. You want to build like a lot of AD and attack speed on her, and then she's just gonna put these charges on. And it's not like Tristana in actual League, where it seems like the charges scale up. It seems like these charges just detonate after 3 seconds, or probably on death as well. There's no way you would like lose them on death. So that's interesting. Just a way to get some extra damage on probably like their front line, maybe their back line later. Seems very reasonable. Just another like unit that just kind of like sits there, right? She's not like the old Tristana in set 5 where she'll be like jumping around the entire map. She's just gonna sit there and keep shooting. So seems good. All right, next we got Twitch Blast Potion. So it's when he throws his flask, deals physical damage and reduces armor. Okay, interesting. So this is kind of like utility. There's a trait in here, and I'm trying to think if we've passed any units already. The Whisper trait, it was called in the leaks. Maybe let me go here and see. Because the Whisper trait, based on what I saw, and maybe it's like translated something else. Okay, no, it's not. Whisper. Oh, he did. It's Thresh is a Whisper. Weird. But the Whisper trait itself reduces armor and MR by 40%. Twitch's ult does something similar. He reduces the armor of enemies hit for some amount of seconds. Kind of interesting, though we have a lot of ways to reduce armor on abilities or traits in this set. Means that something like a Last Whisper I feel like is not as necessary. The combination of IE Last Whisper is still amazing, so like I wouldn't be surprised if people still built it. But it's kind of interesting that that this is like there's this ability and there's the actual legitimate like trait that reduces armor. So pretty interesting. But seems like a good straight up ability. Twitch is actually not an assassin, which is really weird. He's just a guild, which you should check my previous video if you don't know what guild is, because it's really weird. I can't really explain it all in 1 second. And a swift shot as well, but no assassin. He's not jumping to the backline. He's just going to sit there and auto attack and help other ADCs do more damage as well. Another kind of like utility ADC, right? Like he could be a fine carry. Depends on like I guess how this ability scales up. Like maybe if at level, it doesn't say that it scales. So I wonder if it doesn't scale, like if it's always just like a flat 40% of armor that's shred, or if maybe it does scale. We'll see. But, like he could be an okay carry. He also really likes just straight up flat AD because this scales with AD. All right, and the last 2 cost, it is Yone, a Mirage Warrior, 0 to 0. He does not ever cast. He has just a passive, which is his basic attacks alternate between 30, 60, 90 bonus magic damage and dealing bonus physical damage. Yo, that's really cool. So his attacks deal magic damage and physical damage. So it's really hard for the enemy to just straight up itemize armor versus him, because half of his attacks deal bonus magic damage, so he'll probably actually deal a decent amount of magic damage. So this is someone obviously you want a lot of attack speed on. No like healing in his kit, so you probably want some way for him to heal, maybe like a Hand of Justice, because he's not only dealing AD, he's also dealing magic damage. So like something like a Bloodthirster is going to miss out on this damage. So something like a Hand of Justice makes sense, and then just a bunch of attacks, be like Hand of Justice Gwinsu's, maybe like a Titans. That could be really interesting. QSS as well would be really good because he's melee, I'm sure. But yeah, okay. I realize this video is already 30 minutes long, so I think I'm gonna make a separate video for the rest of the units, the 3, 4, and 5 costs. So stay tuned for that as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please like the video, comment down below, and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more of my Set 7 content and just everything in general. Also check out down below for a ton of cool links to everything that I do, and also my Twitch. I would greatly appreciate if you followed that. That being said, hope you guys enjoyed. I will catch you guys in the next video where I'm going to go over the 3, 4, and 5 costs, and also 8 and 10 costs. Ooh, what's that? We'll see.